Madam President? Ms. Boggs? I think 6 o'clock. We ready to go? Before you call the meeting to in session, I'd like to welcome Mr. Ellison as our newly appointed governing board member.
Yes,
Thank you.
welcome.
Round of applause for Shane.
And I was going to ask him if you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after I call the meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Item number 3. Oops, can you hear me? I gotta figure it. Sorry, let me readjust. I got my cucumbers. Okay. Item number 3, regular meeting minutes for November 13th. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll move that we approve the minutes for the meeting on November 13th, 2023.
Is there a second?
I have to abstain, I wasn't present.
Okay.
I'll second.
You need a second? Okay. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Okay, hearing none, call for a vote.
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have an abstention and
2.
Mr. Ellison. Okay. I should have called for abstain.
Yeah, you
Sorry.
should have.
We gonna do it again?
Do we have? Okay, call to the public. Do we have anybody?
Madam President, we do not have anybody this evening.
Okay. Number 5, 5A, personnel. I need, what's action? Yeah, motion to approve personnel.
Madam Chairman, for the third time. I make a motion that we approve item 5A personnel.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Madam President, members of the governing board, there's no uniqueness to this personnel agenda item. As a reminder, as we continue to grow, we'll be adding positions based on the needs of the organization, and this is just a function of that.
Okay. Any more discussion? Any questions? All right, hearing Ms. McAfee, please call for a vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
All right, item B, the new hire instructional staff.
Madam President, I move that we approve item 5B on the agenda.
Okay, is there a second? Discussion?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Ms. McAfee, can you please call for a vote?
Yes, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Job description for a new position. I need a motion to approve.
Madam President, I move that we approve item C on the, 5C on the agenda, sorry.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Madam President, members of the governing board, we currently have adjunct instructors in the organization in our adult education program. One of our needs as we move forward in the associates is to add the adjunct for core content classes like English, science. We had not had those previously. Truth be told, the adjunct position was approved, but we felt it more prudent to bring it back to you just because these are adjunct positions we haven't had in the organization before.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 6, policy revision, first read. Mr. Calvo?
Just checking where we are. This is the grievance procedure we're revising. There's a couple of revisions. The first one is the old policy had a a disjunctive double negative that I tried to change to a positive conjunctive thing, and I only got it half right, so that's the first little change. We're clarifying that the informal grievance process has 2 steps. It had 2 steps, but we're just clarifying that. We had the formal process triggered by the initiation of the informal process, which didn't always work because sometimes the informal process wasn't over within the time designated to start the formal process. We're having the trigger date for the formal process now be the conclusion of the informal process, which makes more sense. And we're defining the composition of the grievance committee and who will convene it. We had omitted that previously. We're clarifying when a grievance may be withdrawn and reinstated. And we've modified the regulation to conform to those changes. And that's it.
Okay. B, discussion on board travel.
Madam
Our
President, members of the
favorite
governing
subject.
board, we are back at it again. So I'm going to be honest with you, I've wrestled a lot with this because the conversation has been a needed one to have, and yet having some resolution to it's been a bit of a challenge. And so at our last regularly scheduled meeting, what we asked is that you table the item so we could bring some additional information. As a reminder, there's a current policy on the books as it relates to board travel, and the long and short of it is that the board has to ask the board for permission to travel in conferences. I mean, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. But part of the concern was, well, what does that mean? Should there be a limit on the numbers? Should there be a dollar amount attached to it? So what we have done is we have taken a look at the average cost that we as an organization have spent since I became the superintendent, with the exception of the year of COVID, because clearly not a lot of traveling happened during COVID. And to look at the average cost that we as an organization have spent, and then to find out the percent that board used of that average cost, to come up with a percentage of what on average the board has been allocated over the past 4 years to use towards travel. What it comes out to is that the board on average over the last 4 years has spent roughly 10% of the total travel conference budget that's been allocated for the organization. So part of what I would recommend to the governing board is that at the end of each year, we calculate for you the amount of dollars spent for travel and conferences as an organization. So simple math, if we spent $100 to send folks to conferences, travel, workshops, that you as a governing board be allocated 10% of that, which would be consistent of what you've been using over the past 4 years. That number will fluctuate year over year because there are going to be some years in which we have significantly more travel based on where we're at as an organization, and some years significantly less travel. You then, as a governing board, get allocated that amount July 1st. We'll calculate it for you, bring it to you July 1st, and then you all follow the policy that you have in relationship to approving each other's travel. So as an example that I gave, if it's $100 that we spent as an organization, you as a governing board would be allocated $10. I would recommend it not be allocated $1 a piece or $1.18 a piece, don't know what the math would be, because I think that's too cumbersome, because it very well may be that you as a governing board want Mr. Hobson to attend all the conferences. And so therefore, if Mr. Hobson would just be allocated $1 of the 10, that wouldn't make sense. So it would be a block of dollars that you guys would have, and then you would then come and ask to have items put on the agenda for your travel, for your conferences, and then you as a governing board discuss it. You as a governing board approve or deny each other's travel, but not to exceed the percent that's been allocated at the beginning of the fiscal year. Is that making any sense?
Yes.
Checking my comprehension. Policy currently has you having to approve each other's travel and conferences. We did the average travel expense, conference expense, since I became superintendent as a district, what percentage the governing board spent. That percentage was about 10%. So the recommendation is that you be allocated the 10% of the prior year's dollars spent for travel. So we'll tell you what we spent this past year, and then 10% of that rolls into the next year for you to use as travel, and then you follow the policy as it relates to you then approving each other's travel. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Questions for me about that? You will see that there's an item down the agenda for the most pressing conference, which is the one that starts this week here in Phoenix. It's the national conference. Certainly, if you look at the dollar amount that was spent last year, the 10% would be allocated out to about $20,000 for you as a governing board. Meaning, clearly, at $700 a person, all of you could most likely attend that if you chose to. But the action item doesn't have anybody attending, so you would need to have an action item that would include whoever might be interested in attending that conference. So part of what we might want to do in the future is, and I'll role play here for you, is if there's a conference that's coming up, we have a discussion at the beginning, like we're having now, and we would include the discussion of the conferences that are on the agenda, so you all can talk amongst yourselves, so that when you make the motion, you make the motion in relationship to who's interested in attending the conference. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Questions, concerns? Mr. Lane?
Yeah, I think the notion of talking amongst ourselves kind of skates the open meeting law.
That was a poorly worded phrase on my part. I would like you to talk publicly in front of everybody as it relates to the board travel in open session.
Okay, is there any more discussion on this?
I have a concern that the policy, I'm sorry, I can't seem to find the policy in the proposed policy in the book here, but my concern is that the policy would bind future boards. And I think that's a problem for me, because I'm keen with the idea of a guideline and of limiting travel, and because I really think these conferences probably would serve instructors and students better than board members, candidly. But I have a problem that by policy we're trying to bind the decision of future boards, and I think I don't think you can do that, actually.
So my recommendation tonight isn't to change existing policy. It's to have a regulation that we would craft for you that has the 10% as the threshold. If you were interested in changing the existing policy, I would understand that.
Okay.
But that would obviously necessitate a different conversation, because this isn't a policy change.
But I like the tenor of what you're suggesting in terms of being alert to this, and us, because the board ultimately is the agency responsible for approving all of these expenditures. Mr. Kilbold, you were going to correct me about something, I know.
I was just going to say a future board can change the policy back any
Right.
way it wants.
Gotcha.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, Ms. McAfee, do you want to call? Oh, wait, did we motion? Pro- But it's under an action item. It's under action item.
That was just
Okay.
information and discussion.
Okay,
We're now
oh,
on,
all right,
Item 7.
sorry. Oh, we're, okay, I've jumped ahead, I'm back, I'm to our, the conference. So, okay, discussion. 7A, approval of board attendance at ACTE conference. We need a motion?
Is there anybody who's asking to attend?
I have to work.
Madam Chairman, I would also point out, I think Mr. Covington will bear me out on this, that this is the conference that the fellows we met from Florida were keen about encouraging us to come to, and I can't go, and I think Mr. Covington's got other commitments, but there were some really interesting faculty from the career and technical education program at I forget the Florida University, that were going to be there, and they were really excited about and encouraging us to come, so I can't go.
I could possibly, but I can't commit, that's my problem. I'd have to,
I think Ms. McAfee and Dr. Metcalf ought to go.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's great. Unfortunately, I can't attend. Thank you.
If you would, the action, you don't have to attend. You can look at the schedule and see, but without the action for you to attend, then it's not a possibility. So you're not required to attend if the action item is for you to attend, but you can't attend if it's not.
I'm going to move that we approve item 7A in the event that someone finds in their schedule that they can attend, I think.
I like that.
Well,
Second.
Yeah, I like that.
Is it eligible for all to attend? Any and all?
You know, there's not all. We'd be lucky if one or two people can go to part of it, so.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Any more discussion on that? All
I'll
right,
second that.
okay.
It's already been
Sorry, but second. Ms.
Okay.
McAfee, will you please call for a vote?
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right,
difference between
7B,
discussion
policy revision, second read, Mr. Kelbel.
This was the child abuse reporting guideline we just
Yeah, that's more
updated to
discussion.
give the portal to the Child Protective Services link, so it'd be more direct reporting.
Okay.
That was it.
All right, so I need a motion to approve the policy revision.
I'll move that we approve the policy revision as read for the first and second time.
I'll second that.
Is there any more discussion on this? Hearing none, Ms. McAfee, please call for a vote.
Covington?
Aye.
I'm sorry, what was that? Aye?
He said aye.
Aye, okay, I'm sorry. Ellingson? Did I say it right?
Was this for the conference?
No,
No. This
this
is
for the policy
policy
revision.
read.
Child abuse.
Policy change for
7B.
this. No, we went over the last meeting, went over this and struck out and put in.
Yeah, that's the one. I wasn't here, so.
Yeah, he's gonna abstain. Just say abstain.
He's still on.
Just abstain.
He can go. Okay.
No, yep,
Metcalf?
now see it.
Abstain.
Gotta have red.
Is Metcalf.
Aye.
You're between two
Boggs.
neighbors.
Aye.
Lane?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Aye. McAfee's an aye. Motion carries.
Item 7C, RFP for automotive technical education training equipment. I need a motion to approve.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve item 7C.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, I'd ask Dr. Doolin to come speak to the auto trainers. She's been working with the department closely to secure those.
Okay. Oops, on, Mike, there you go.
Good evening, Madam President and board members. So I'll make this quick and painless. We are in the process of really looking how we can grow the automotive. We have space. We even in the remodeled established more space, but one of the things we were running into is parking. Parking is limited here at EVIT, as you know. We only have one exit out onto Main, and we have all of our students exiting out on Main, but we need parking spots for them because of our growth. One of the things we looked at was how many cars auto had, and it was determined that we had a huge surplus. I don't want to say huge, large, excessive, whatever you want to call it. So, and we also had some cars that were here. I'll give an example. Some of you might know we've had a fire truck that's been here for years that hasn't worked, that had cobwebs and was taking up space. And we just needed to move some of this off the campus. So part of what we looked at is what do we need for the students? And what was the auto teachers expressed an interest of going to some trainers because they don't need as many vehicles if we have trainers. The trainers take up much less space than having a car for each individual thing to meet the number of students that we have. So that is why we are purchasing the trainers. We did get rid of 20-plus cars, 20, I think it's 25,
25 or 26.
26 cars. We're also limiting the number of donations we take. We're being real critical and really looking at what the needs are and not just taking every car that is volunteered to be donated to us to make sure it meets the needs of the program and the students. And so then we bought the trainers to make up that deficit in between so that we can make sure the students are getting the training they needed in a quick, efficient manner, but yet taking up less space than having as many vehicles as we've had in the past. That still leaves us with 40-plus vehicles. So there's no shortage.
Right. Okay. Any more discussion?
Yes, I have discussion. There's no dollar amounts here for what we're approving, and I don't know, I've not seen any specifications for what it is we're getting, the actual what it is, besides trainers. That's pretty vague to me.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members. The request for proposal went out with specific items as it relates to the automotive trainers in terms of requesting pricing for trainers that would cover all of the different areas within the automotive. Obviously, I'm not an expert in the field, but making sure that they were addressing the different areas such as the motors, the transmissions, and different areas. The cost average varies from trainer to trainer. It's approximately $167,000 that will be budgeted out of Perkins. The state we added that to the state grant for approval, so that's where that funding is coming from. I believe there are 10 of them.
Is there any more discussion on this?
All we're doing is asking for a bid.
What happens to the vehicles once they've been fixed or once they've gone through the educational process with the students?
So I'm going to let Dr. Doolin, yes.
So of course, as vehicles come in, some of them are used for specific needs. All of the vehicles that we got rid of, majority of them, the ones that we got rid of, we took parts out of them that we could continue to use, such as tires for alignment purposes, because then we can just realign. But when they have served their purpose, most of the vehicles are tinkered with much that they're not resold necessarily by us. They are sent to disposal for parts, because we've pulled all the parts from them, used them as trainers. Some of the motors have been pulled and been put on we've made our own teachers that they've played with and continue to use, all for training purposes. But as they wear and tear and as they break down, we then just send them on to the junkyard. We dispose of them that way. And you guys have to approve of all those disposals. We also will, like I said, pull the parts, any viable parts that we can still use in the program, we do pull before we send those off. But they don't last forever when you have 160 students tinkering with them every day.
And I think, Madam President, members of the governing board, I think one of the things that historically the organization has struggled with is that we're very willing to accept donations. And that's a good thing in many ways, right? But in some cases, it's not a good thing, because we wind up at times getting donations from individuals that aren't really the kind of donations our students can use. And so we're being far more critical of the donations we accept so that they can be used in order to help provide our students the learning opportunity that they deserve and need within the organization. So limiting the number of actual vehicles we have for students to work on, but offsetting that with the trainer allows us to grow the program, have the tools and resources the students need, but not necessarily clutter up the organization as it had been over the past 20 plus years.
Okay. Dang. So we're approving spending money.
167K. No. We're just approving, awarding a contract.
They're awarding the contract.
We're approving the contract, so
We'll
we're
come
not
back.
approving, okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to make
Correct.
sure after Mr. Lane's comment that
Correct.
that was clarified, that we're not approving spending the money. It's
Correct.
approving the contract.
Correct.
Okay.
One more question.
Okay.
Just one more question real quick. In Perkins, was this a budget line item that was added recently, or was that written back when it opened?
So always get, you'll have it sent to you on your computer.
It was added through the revision process.
Through the
Our
revision.
Perkins allocation is adjusted after the state does, so it was reallocated once we received the additional allocation.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion on this? Ooh, I got loud. All right. Hearing none, Ms. McAfee, please call for a vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, closing item, calendar.
Madam President, members of the governing board, I believe, and Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we only have one meeting scheduled in December. I would like, if at all possible, to have a second study session in December, just because I think there's increasingly more information we need to share with you before we get into the new school year or into the new calendar year. So I don't know if it's going to work, but just to be aware that Tammy is going to see if she can't pull together another study session between now and the time, and maybe we'll hook it up with that meeting, maybe, so that we're not having to come in twice. But I do think there's value in getting together at least one time, possibly two, before we're done, before the new year.
The 11th.
We could do a Christmas party at the same time.
Okay. All right. B, adjournment.
I so move.
Present, I second the adjournment.
Okay. Ms. McAfee?
Yes, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
So